The wagon trail was empty, save for the circling crows. Somewhere between Red Basin and the town of Dry Fork, a woman's body lay curled in the dirt. Torn blouse. Blood on her lip. Barely breathing. Her name was Clara May Tilden, once the preacher's daughter, now nothing more than a forgotten shape in the middle of nowhere. She'd fled from a man in a dark coat and darker eyes, Eli Ward, a bounty hunter turned outlaw who had taken everything from her. Her money. Her name. Her dignity. He'd left her for dead, but death didn't want her yet. The sound of a horse's hooves broke the silence. Steady, unhurried, a tall figure appeared against the wind, his long coat dusted with red earth. He wore a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his eyes and said nothing as he dismounted. Clara tried to crawl. Her voice caught in her throat. The man kneeled beside her, pulled a water skin from his saddlebag, tipped it gently to her lips. She flinched, but drank. He never spoke, only watched. And when she passed out, he wrapped her in his duster and lifted her like she was made of glass. She woke to the smell of firewood and soup. Her wounds had been cleaned. A bandage circled her ribs. Her cheek was swollen, but she could breathe. The man sat by the stove, cleaning his rifle with slow care. "Who are you?" she rasped. He glanced at her but said nothing. Just nodded once, as if to say, "You're safe." He didn't speak the next day either, nor the one after that. But he fed her, nursed her fever, left her flannel shirts and his own coat when she shivered. When she asked again, he finally said, "Name's Cole, that was all. Nights were hardest. She screamed sometimes, dreams full of blood and the echo of boots on wood floors. Eli's voice, Eli's fists. One night, she woke from a nightmare and ran outside barefoot into the snow. Cole followed, found her on her knees near the tree line. He didn't speak, just sat beside her. When she collapsed into him sobbing, he wrapped his arms around her, rough hands steady on her back, the side of his jaw pressed gently to her temple. He held her like a man holds something he's afraid to break. Like she was gold. Months passed. Clara's face healed. So did her voice. And she began to help around the cabin, cooked, chopped wood, sang once too, and caught Cole watching her. That looked like the sun breaking through fog. Then, one spring morning, the sound of hooves returned. 3 men. Eli Ward was back, and he had questions. He smiled when he saw her outside. "You really think you could hide from me out here?" Cole stood on the porch, silent, hand resting on his holster. Eli laughed. "You gonna shoot me, cowboy?" Cole didn't answer. He just drew. It wasn't a fast draw. It was a sure one. Cole fired once. Eli dropped to his knees, blood blooming across his coat like a rose. The others ran. Clara didn't speak, didn't cry. She stepped off the porch and stood over Eli. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she said. Eli's last breath was a curse, and then he was still. That night she and Cole sat on the porch. No words, just wind and the smell of pine sap and ash. "I never got to thank you," she said. "You don't have to. I want to." He turned to her, eyes dark and kind and quiet. "Then stay." She did. That summer she built a garden, learned to ride, danced once in the cabin's tiny kitchen with Cole holding her hand like it was sacred. They never talked about love, didn't need to. She knew it in the way he fixed her boots and in how he leaned his forehead to hers before sleep. He knew it in how she sang to the mountains. One fall morning, she found a letter in Cole's handwriting. "I once lost someone. Long time ago. I thought my voice died with her. But you made me speak again." She folded it into her dress pocket. Years passed. Folks in Dry Fork said they saw the two of them sometimes, riding quiet and slow, a woman with fire in her hair, A man who rarely spoke, but always held her hand like it meant everything. And maybe it did, because he never let go. It was the summer of the dry thunder. Lightning cracked over the eastern ridges, igniting the tall grass beyond the valley. The wind howled through the canyons like a warning. Cole rode out without a word. He'd seen fire before, how it crept fast like a hungry thing, how it fed on panic. Clara watched him from the porch, hands gripping her apron. She wanted to beg him not to go, but she didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Come back." And he did. Scorched coat, blackened gloves, but alive. She ran to him. Didn't say a word, just held him like she once did when the world had gone dark. Like he was gold. Clara kept a small box under the bed. Inside were scraps of paper, letters she wrote but never mailed. To her mother, who died years before. To the preacher's wife, who once braided her hair. To herself, at 16, before Eli Ward. Each letter ended the same way. "He doesn't say much, Mama. But when he looks at me, I feel whole." One day Cole found the box. He didn't open it. But he added something. A small folded piece of cloth. The torn sleeve from her blouse, the day he first found her. They found a field high in the hills, beyond the pines, where no one ever went. Wildflowers covered it in spring. In winter, it was nothing but white silence. They buried an old dog there. Later, a colt that hadn't made it through the night. Then, a child. She hadn't even been born. Clara carried her 6 months before the bleeding started. Cole held her afterward, tighter than he ever had. They named her Hope anyway. And every spring after, Clara planted a single yellow daisy in the middle of that field. Cole built a bench. They sat there often, in silence. One afternoon, a boy came riding up the trail, barely 16, eyes full of trouble, Colt revolver at his hip. He was looking for Cole. Said his pa was killed in a poker fight with a quiet bastard who never missed when he shot. Clara stood behind Cole on the porch. The boy's hands trembled. Cole, finally speaking, wasn't poker. Wasn't a fight. "Your pa pulled first. I let him live." He came back again. The boy swallowed, lowered his gun. The wind moved through the trees like breath. "Clara, you hungry?" The boy nodded, eyes glassy. She brought him stew. He never pulled the gun again. Years passed like pages in a book written slowly by hand. Cole's beard grew silver. Clara's hands grew weathered. But her hair still caught fire in the sunlight. He built her a greenhouse when her knees grew tired of bending. She carved his name into the bedpost when he couldn't hold a pen anymore. And one night, long after the world had stopped trying to reach them, he fell asleep with his hand in hers. And didn't wake up. She didn't cry at first. She just whispered, "I knew you wouldn't let go." After the funeral, a quiet thing beneath a sky so blue it hurt, Clara sat in the cabin for 3 days. On the 4th, she saddled Cole's horse, wore his duster. She rode into Dry Fork and bought seeds, flour, and a rifle. Some folks asked if she'd sell the land. She looked them in the eye and said, "Why would I leave the only place I've ever been loved?" Clara lived another 10 years. Every spring, she planted flowers in the field. Every fall, she left a cup of coffee on the bench. When she passed, no one found her right away. But when they did, she was sitting on that bench. Dressed in her best Sunday clothes, hat on her lap, a smile just barely touching her lips. She held a letter. It read, "I wasn't left behind after all. You just went ahead to warm the trail." They buried her next to Cole, under the trees. And folks say, when the wind is just right, you can still hear 2 voices in the pines. No words, just love